Hello, good evening. Welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana marginally increases policy rate to 30% to help control inflation. We have details.
Ghana's macroeconomic framework requires decisive tightening from both the fiscal and monetary side to anchor inflation expectations firmly on the declining path. Given these considerations and under the current circumstances, the committee has decided to increase the monetary policy rate by 0.5% to 30%.
Total mobile money transactions hit 859 billion cedis in the first half of 2023. Also in this bulletin, Ghana secures more than $540 million in taxes through the exports of crude oil in the first half of this year. Details of these and many others shortly. Thanks so much for choosing us. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Let's now look at our stories. And total mobile money transactions reached a record of 859 billion cedis in the first 6 months of this year. That's according to data from the Bank of Ghana. This is compared with 480 billion cedis recorded during the same period in 2022. There is more in the following Business Desk reports.
If the trend continues, the total mobile money transactions will hit 1 trillion cedis by the end of July 2023. According to the Summary of Economic and Financial Data by the Bank of Ghana, mobile money transactions continued to go up, recording its biggest transaction of about 159 billion cedis in May. It, however, declined slightly to 149.4 billion cedis in June. The significant growth in mobile money transactions is mind-boggling because of the electronic transaction levy. Despite the growth in mobile money transactions, revenue has been well below the government's expectations. Meanwhile, total value of mobile money interoperability for the first 6 months of this year was estimated at about 16.89 billion cedis.
And some economic experts and micro-policy advisors in the West African sub-region have started a program to find solutions to challenges with the exchange rate systems in West Africa. The move is to support central banks in the ECOWAS region to take best practices to reform their current exchange rate regimes and economic policies. Director of Research and Economic Management at the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, Dr. Emmanuel Wusu-Ifriye, has been explaining to Joy Business on the importance of the regional program.
1 week regional course by the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management is expected to equip participants with deeper knowledge and necessary skills needed for designing, implementing and evaluating exchange rate regimes in the sub-region. Director of Research and Economic Management at the Institute, Dr. Emmanuel Wusu, said this is very important for economic growth.
The choice of an exchange rate regime is very important as far as monetary management is concerned. Depending on the monetary policy framework that the country selects, it will determine the appropriate exchange rate regime that is consistent with that monetary policy regime. So this course is to help us deliberate on the challenges that we within the sub-regions we encounter as far as the exchange rate choices that we have made, the outcomes and the lessons that we have learned over the period. And in fact, some of the recent developments, especially we all know that some of our countries are faced with exchange rate challenges.
Dr. Wusu also believes that this will support the participating countries in meeting the convergence criteria for the much anticipated ECO, which is a common currency to be used by West African countries.
That is why we have these convergence indicators that we have set for ourselves. We have some in terms of fiscal, we have some in terms of inflation, we have some in terms of exchange rate. So when we converge in terms of all these things, then it will help us in knowing the appropriate exchange rate that we would have to apply when we see ourselves within that harmonized environment. So it has everything to also do with our regional integration project. Yes.
Speaking on behalf of the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Chief Economist and Head of Statistics at the Central Bank, Dr. Christian Horton, noted that Ghana's choice of exchange rate regime is aimed at managing foreign exchange flows and stabilizing the local currency. Eben Sabute's report for Joy Business.
Now, the country secured a little over $540 million in taxes through the export of crude oil in the first half of this year. This was captured in Ghana's Petroleum Fund's report for the first 6 months. The report showed that the firms operating on the Jubilee and 10 oil fields paid a little over $166 million in taxes to the state. On the other hand, surface rental charges stood at $3.4 million. Meanwhile, the Ghana Stabilization Fund and the Ghana Heritage Fund now have more than $1 billion in the country's account with the Federal Bank of New York. A while longer in the space, and the National Petroleum Authority is finally set to implement the National Cylinder Recirculation Program from September this year after initial setbacks. This was contained in a letter to the LPG marketers in Ghana cited by Joy Business. The directive for marketing and distribution of LPG seeks to ensure that majority of Ghanaians have access to clean and safe gas for domestic and commercial use. Now, the program will first be rolled out in the Greater Accra region, and the Ashanti region will follow before it is extended to other parts of the country. But Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association, Gabriel Kumi, is cautioning government to ensure that the implementation of the program does not become detrimental to stakeholders who have invested heavily in the industry.
We as an association, I must stress that we don't have anything against the policy per se. We believe that government can only govern through the implementation of policies and programs. So we have no problem if government wants to introduce a policy in our sector. This is not a greenfield. This is an industry that has been in existence for the past 30 years. The implementation of cylinder recirculation model, you are not introducing a new industry. You are only trying to apply a new strategy to an existing industry. So this is an industry that is so entrenched in the country. There is a need for you to be very, very, very careful the way you go about it. You don't go about it as if we haven't sold LPG in Ghana before. This is the first time we are going to start selling LPG. We are operating on a brownfield, I should say. So we will caution that there is a lot of investment that has gone down the drain. We have over 700 LPG retail outlets across the country. We have over 600 LPG trucks distributing LPG across the country. There is a need for you to be very, very, very careful the way you introduce this, so you don't throw a lot of investment down the drain. Because majority of these investments were done through facilities from banks and other financial institutions. And there is a need for us to also look at the consuming public. If a policy like this is coming to replace a policy that has been in existence for 30 years, that consumers are used to for 30 years, there is a need for you to be very, very careful the way you implement it.
Away from energy-related stories, interest rates on the money market returned to the 30% bracket as the government mobilizes more funds to finance maturing debt. According to the auction result by the Bank of Ghana, the government accepted all bids tendered for the Treasury Bills by the investors to the tune of 2.699 billion cedis.
The T-bill sale was oversubscribed by a marginal 1.70%, but a rising interest cost is a major concern to all stakeholders. The yield on the 364-day bill inched up to 30.04% from the previous 29.65%. VAT of the 91-day bill shot up by 0.39% to 24.92%. Again, the 182-day bill also escalated to 26.80% from 26.40% previously. In the first 4 months of this year, the government domestic debt went up by a significant 15.6 billion cedis. According to the results by the Bank of Ghana, about 1.785 billion cedis were tendered for the 91-day bill. All the bids were accepted. A little about 557 million cedis were, however, mobilized from the one-year bill.
To the aviation industry now, more foreign airlines are eyeing Ghana's airspace to operate commercial services. That's according to a Deputy Commissioner of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Daniel Akwa. However, he said most of these airlines do not meet the criteria necessary to attain the approval for the authority. He was speaking at an Aviation Safety Investigation Day celebration. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau organized a forum as part of the Aviation Safety Investigation Data celebration to deliberate on ways to improve safety in the aviation industry. The forum was held under the theme, Working Together for an Innovative and Sustainable Global Aviation. In an interview, Deputy Commissioner of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Daniel Akwa, said there has been an increase in requests for the establishment of commercial airlines in the country.
We have a lot more knocking on our doors to establish airlines. But the reality is that it is, one, very expensive or capital intensive to establish an airline. And then two, the personnel required to be in the helm of affairs, according to the Civil Aviation Regulations or Directive. Yes, you need certain caliber of personnel. It's not anybody at all who can maybe, let's say, take on the position of Director of Maintenance in an airline, okay, or Director of Flight Operations. Director of Operations must be a pilot with some number of hours, with some kind of administrative experience in order to hold that position. So we have all that criteria in our directives or regulations. So a lot knock on our doors. Maybe they have the money, but then when they come and then you spell out, okay, the rudiments of the game, they just fizzle out. Others too, because of the capital intensiveness of the industry, yes, they knock on our doors, you take them through the certification process, and they realize that, no, it is not like operating a road transport system.
Commissioner of the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, Akwesi Prempe, called for collaboration of stakeholders in the aviation industry to safeguard lives and protect the country's human resource.
We are looking at the preventive aspect, not investigating occurrences, but how we will prevent occurrences, being it accident or serious incident. That is the reason why we are here today. And we've called on the European Accident Safety Agency. We need to collaborate more. Without collaboration, yes, incident may happen. The airline operator may likely refuse to report. And if they don't report, meaning it can occur again. But if they report and we investigate, it prevents future occurrence. So more collaboration between the airlines, operators, and the authority as well.
The Ghana Civil Aviation Authority also indicated that government plans to develop a policy to assist aircraft accident victims. You're still watching Business Live here on the Joy News channel. More. Hello, welcome back. Stakeholders in the poultry industry are calling on government to invest in the poultry sector, especially feed production, to reduce prices. The government will soon impose an import quota on frozen chicken, but account executive of Sub-Saharan Africa for USA Poultry and Egg Export Council, Rose Kuriz, wants the government to check the cost of feed to ensure the full realization of the poultry sector.
The USA Poultry and Egg Exports Council organized a training program of culinary skills as part of its latest campaign objective to educate technical university students on poultry. Speaking at the event, account executive for Sub-Saharan Africa for the council, Rose Queiroz, revealed that this is part of efforts by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to support Ghana's poultry industry and agriculture sector as a whole.
We have tried. Unfortunately, what the problem is in most of sub-Saharan countries is the cost of feed is very expensive because you use it mainly for as a staple meal in Africa. So feed is very expensive and vaccines are very expensive. So that becomes difficult. Where we can assist is by assisting with doing programs like this. This is a very successful program, and this is where we assist to promote people to then go onto either farming or become world-renowned chefs one day, and that is the way that we assist.
The 2-day hands-on training program aims to drive chicken consumption and give the top 10 students from technical universities an opportunity to compete against each other. Internationally renowned chef David Bonham has been training the students.
In the United States, it's a little more established in terms of it's sort of a European style, where as opposed to here where it's more local. And it's interesting because I was very impressed with their skills. Knife skills were very good. Their knowledge of the classics were very great. And you need that basis. So one of the things that I try to impress to the kids, when I say kids, young men and women, because they're 19, 20, 21, that to think outside the box.
The winner of the American Chicken Cooking Competition 2021, Jonathan Gabriel Lamy, stated that the competition changed his life and boosted his business.
Before I won the USAPIC competition, I had a business, but when I won it, I went viral, so it helped me get to know more people, and with that I was able to get contracts. I'm going to tell every young one out there that if you have a passion, if there's something you want to do, don't give up. Don't follow friends or anything. Just have a focused mind and work towards it. And I know with the help of God, everything will fall in place, and your dream I want to will become a reality no matter what. You shouldn't give up.
The 6th edition of the biannual America Chicken Cooking Competition is slated for July 2023.
On to one of our headline stories. An inflation rate hike and threats to economic growth for this year has forced the Bank of Ghana to hike the policy rate by 0.5%. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana maintained that it will continue to take decisive measures to keep inflation under control. There is more in this report.
The Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison noted that they want to take the required measures to ensure that gains made so far are not eroded.
Globally, all central banks are tightening, and the source of the problem is also coming from energy and food prices. So all central banks are tightening, and all central banks are facing supply side shocks from food and energy prices, and they are focused on the secondary effects or the second round effects of these types of shocks.
He also maintained that most of the commercial banks have complied with the directive of purchasing armored bullion vans for the transport of cash from one end to their branches in the country.
Broadly, most of them are complying. I mean, you heard about the unfortunate event that took place a few weeks ago, and we immediately, asked them to comply and not wait for July 1st. To comply. The lady who talked about the July 1st deadline, we immediately asked the banks to comply earlier. It was 2 weeks or so to the end of June.
The public debt stock witnessed some significant jump from December last year to reach over 500 million Ghana cedis in April this year. But the governor notes that it was mainly due to the recent sharp depreciation of the Ghana cedi.
You'll see that the external debt component in cedi terms, tended to increase significantly. Domestic debt only increased by about 11 billion cedis or so. So most of that, what we call a spike in public debt, was due to the exchange rate movement, especially in January. As I read the press release, we noticed that there was a significant exchange rate adjustment in January. That is what impacted on the dollar value, the cedi value of the external debt.
The Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Ernest Addison also disclosed that in terms of the economy, government expenditure and fiscal operations are largely within target.
And research lead at GCB Capital, Courage Buti, has been reacting to this development.
The issue is that you look at countries around us, Egypt, you look at Kenya, you look at Nigeria, even the US and the many other countries, it looks like the food inflation pressure, South Africa inclusive, is not exclusive to Ghana. It actually cuts across. So the question becomes, what could be the main driver of the food price pressures really? If COVID is easing, supply chains are recovering, and all of that, what could be the major driver? I think that is what we need to unlock. But the reality is that food inflation is quite elevated, 54% and counting, and it has been the trend for the last few months, really. So it begs watching for us to sustain and anchor inflation expectations going forward. So while I thought we could have made do with maybe a hold, a 50 basis point hike, it's not too high, really. And
not
to the
too
extent
high?
that it could bring back, it's not too high an increment relative to what we've seen in recent hikes, really, where your 150s, your 200 basis points are the ones we've seen. 50 basis points pales in the shadow of what we've seen in recent times, really. And the fact that the intention is to help firmly anchor inflation expectations, which would ultimately bring back economic activity, we just give the central bank the benefit of the doubt as to how they intend to achieve that. And we would look at how it evolves over the next few months, really. Well, from the look of things, yes, it's early days yet. Revenue measures were just passed in May, but revenue seems to be a problem. Over the half year, we've seen 10 billion deficits in revenue. Will that mean new tax policies or new tax interventions? I dare say I do not expect that, because then it will bother on insensitivity and it will bother on even worsening the hardship, really. So that and more on fiscal controls and how to achieve the target is really what the broad expectation is. And that the circumstances that do not expect new policy interventions, really. They will just be adjusting the fiscal framework to reflect the realities of our time. And that is what I look forward to.
Moving on, Chancellor at the University of Professional Studies, Accra, Dr. KK Sarpong, is asking government to show a significant interest in the insurance industry. He is asking insurance industry players to collaborate with the government to increase coverage for more jobs to be created. He was speaking at the 2023 Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana induction ceremony.
The inductees were urged to exude professionalism in their operations. Dr. KK Sarpong called for a robust insurance space to drive economic growth.
By reducing fear and anxiety in the face of uncertainty, insurance gives us peace of mind. Insurance encourages savings and investment, and ultimately promotes economic growth. So you are in a very vital sector. It is the adhesive that can pull people and businesses back from the brink of collapse in an uncertain circumstances. One distinctive benefit of insurance is the implementation of insurance recommendations, which contributes towards improvement of operations of businesses.
On this part, President for the Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana, Solomon Latte, argued that the current global economic temperature demands increased vigilance on the part of financial service providers and insurance players.
I'm sure that if we all professionals perform their duties professionally, government agencies perform their duties professionally, and everyone does their work professionally, then we will get there. So for the CIG, we talk about professionalism, integrity, and excellence in every aspect of our lives. And I believe that that's the way forward for a country like Ghana.
The event was under the theme Professionalism Amidst Global Economic Challenges.
Thanks so much for watching Business Live with me, Pius Kojo Baka. You can get great stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business to enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye.